It was late winter in Fukui prefecture, and a harsh blizzard had blanketed the area in snow, causing the residents of local towns to hold up inside their homes and wait out the freezing storm. Well, all except for one man wandering the streets late at night. This is the true, unsolved case of the Blue Blanket Butcher. Before I get into this video, I want to preface it by stating that this video was extremely difficult to research. Not only is the case around 120 years old, but the resources available are written in old-style Japanese, meaning that even Japanese people can't read them very well without a dictionary. Also, some of the information cannot be as easily verified, so forgive me if I get a bit hazy with the detailed facts. As always, I will do my best to cross-reference information and stick to the most reliable stuff, but the style of this video is going to be a bit different from usual. Now, on to the video. On the night of the 11th of February 1906, the streets of Mikuni town were eerily quiet. The owner of the local cargo vessel store, 30-year-old Kaga, wasn't expecting any visitors at such a time during a snowstorm, so was busy doing other duties with some of his employees, when the door to the shop suddenly slid open and a man stepped inside. The visitor was male and looked to be around 30 to 35 years old. He was unknown to the owner Kaga or the other employees, but what stood out to them the most was the man's odd appearance. The visitor had wrapped himself completely in a large blue blanket. It wasn't the usual cape, mantle, or poncho that people commonly wore at the time, but was instead something similar to the large blankets you wrap yourself up with in bed at night. The bizarre appearance and strange color gave the man an ominous aura. The visitor turned to the owner and said, and I quote, "Your aunt suddenly became sick and collapsed. Please come with me." Now, Kaga was a wise man. He, even before the age of 30, ran a successful business and was not the type of person to be easily fooled. He was initially suspicious, but because of the terrible blizzard hounding the town and the visitor's insistence that the relative had ordered him to go and bring Kaga, Kaga agreed to go with him. He was a caring family man after all, and wouldn't leave anybody in need. He closed his shop and left with the unknown blanket-clad visitor towards the Shimbo Bridge to the other side of the town, and was never seen again. This, however, is by no means the end of the story, because 2 hours later, the blue blanket man would make another appearance. At the store owner Kaga's family home, there was a knock at the door. Kaga's mother, Kiku, opened it to see the man wrapped in a blue blanket stood in the doorway. He said to the mother that he came across the river from Shimbo village to bring her immediately to a sick, bedridden relative. He said that the relative was asking to see Kiku before they passed away. The mother, obviously worried and panicked by the situation, put on some winter clothes and left with the man. She was last seen walking towards the bridge, before disappearing in the heavily falling snow, never to be seen again. But again, this was not the end of the story, nor the end of the blue blanket man's appearances. Just under 1 hour later, he once again came to Kaga's family home where he had taken the mother. This time, the 25-year-old wife of Kaga, called Tsuo, answered the door. Stating the same reason he used on Kiku, he quickly took Tsuno out of the home. Tsuno and Kaga's child, a 2-year-old daughter, was being taken care of by a neighbor at the time, so was not at the family home when the man visited. Unfortunately though, he would be back. Around 40 minutes later, the blue blanket man showed up for a final time. On this occasion, and I think you can guess, He showed up at the neighbor's house, the neighbor that was taking care of Kaga and Suo's 2-year-old daughter. He knocked on the neighbor's door, and the babysitter, called Mio, opened it. The man, still wrapped in the blue blanket, said that he came to collect the 2-year-old daughter to bring to a sick relative, the very same excuse he used for all the other incidents so far. Fortunately, the babysitter became very suspicious. She had been entrusted to care for this young child, and seeing the blizzard causing such chaos in the town, felt like she couldn't hand over the child to a man she doesn't know without the parents' permission. By this point, it was also extremely late at night, and the man was described as being very scary. The blue blanket visitor suddenly changed. Rather than talk in a calm way he did up until this point, he became a little harsher and persistent, insisting that the child go with him. Mio stood her ground, however, and grew even more suspicious at the man. After she gave him one final telling off, one final refusal, the man, with an evil snarl, grudgingly turned away and walked off into the night, never to be seen again. This action by the quick-thinking babysitter ultimately saved that girl's life that day. That feeling of relief, however, would be short-lived once the morning came around. In the early hours of the morning, a local carpenter was on his way to work. He was walking across the 500-meter bridge that connects Mikuni town and Shimbo village when he came across a ghastly scene. In the middle of the bridge was a huge blood stain. The wood and snow were completely stained with blood. The guardrail on one side had been cut away with what looked like a single axe stroke. Despite the huge amount of blood, no bodies were found. The carpenter, suspecting that a murder or foul play had taken place, went to make a report with the Mikuni police force. Investigators quickly made their way to the scene. After seeing all the blood and cut-away railguard, they believed that someone had committed murder before throwing the bodies off the bridge and into the Kuzuryu River. But this wasn't all they found. While patrolling and conducting surveys of the town, they also discovered a large amount of blood on the side of a small boat, moored nearby on the Takeda River, which joins to the Kuzuryu River. After discovering Suo's body downstream on the riverbed, they concluded that it was she that was murdered on the boat. They theorized that perhaps the man had ferried her across the river on the boat rather than walk across the bridge, and killed her along the way before throwing her body overboard. Local police, seeing that this case was very serious and too big for the town force to handle, asked for assistance from the Fukui prefectural police force. On the 14th of February, the Fukui police force searched the estuary of the Kuzuryu River and discovered another body, that of Kiku, the mother of the store owner and second victim. After finding the bodies of the two women, police initially believed that Kaga was the prime suspect because they couldn't locate him. But because there was so much blood on the bridge, too much for it to be from one person, they believed that Kaga had also been murdered. Unfortunately, his body was never found and most likely washed away down the river. That day, they also learned of the mysterious blue blanket man from the babysitter and store employees, which immediately brewed suspicion. They interviewed the other family members of the victims and discovered that none of them were sick, dying, or had requested that Kaga, Kiku, or Suo come and visit them. The story used by the blue blanket butcher was completely fabricated, and so police concluded that it was used just to lure the people out of the store and home to be killed. One witness told police, and I quote, "I think the man was around 30 years old. He had a towel wrapped around his head that was tied at the chin, and on top of that the blue blanket covered his head and body completely, so I cannot give you any clear details." Police were also working hard to investigate and find a possible motive for the crime. As I am sure you have noticed, all victims were from the same family, and the butcher even tried to kill the 2-year-old daughter, who ended up being the sole survivor. Investigators wondered if there was something personal with this crime, and whether it was aimed at the family in particular by someone bearing a grudge. Was it possible that the victims knew the criminal, but didn't recognize him due to the darkness and blanket? But Kaga was a highly respected man in the town. He was honest, hard-working, and didn't even drink alcohol. Many in the town found it hard to believe that he or any of his family members incurred any kind of enmity from anyone. At the same time though, it's puzzling to think why someone would want to kill an entire family. The criminal had no interest in killing the babysitter, but he tried very hard to take the 2-year-old daughter from her. It doesn't seem like the actions of someone who is committing a random attack, but sounds like the person had a goal in mind. Police even theorized that maybe someone in the town was very jealous of Kaga because he had a very successful business and a beautiful wife at a relatively young age of 30. But police didn't get very far with investigating this line, as there was no solid evidence. Of course, as this crime was committed in 1906, no forensic evidence could be collected. No weapon, no fingerprints, no axe, or blue blanket were discovered. And while police still suspected that the person had a personal grudge against the family, no single person could be identified as a suspect, and the case quickly went cold. It was said, however, that because Suo was murdered on a boat rather than the bridge, the man was at least familiar with sailing. Could he have a link with Kaga's cargo vessel store? Unfortunately, 120 years later, we will never know. It was as if this person just disappeared, never to be seen again. Or did he? 4 years after this incident, there was another murder in Mikuni town. The weapon of choice? An axe. It is said that a 26-year-old with serious mental issues had a fight with his father in the early hours of the morning. Enraged, he went out on a random attack, killing one and injuring several more. What's strange about this attack is the location of the crime, Ormon, which was literally just down the road from Kaga's shop, in between the store and his home, where the other 2 women were taken from. Could these crimes be linked? Could this person have committed all of these acts? It seems that the Blue Blanket murders were conducted by someone who was quite level-headed and intelligent, so I'm not sure if these incidents are linked, but let me know what you think in the comments. In 1921, 15 years after the Blue Blanket murders, the statute of limitations passed, and the police no longer investigated the crime. Strangely, and in a bizarre twist, a 49-year-old man caught for a string of thefts by Kyoto police proclaimed that he was the Blue Blanket butcher in 1926. Police, however, didn't buy his story because he couldn't get his facts straight or rely accurate information. He was a known liar and career thief. His previous crimes were completely different from those of the Blue Blanket murders, and he wasn't even in Mikuni town at the time. It was very clear to everyone that he was just saying these things to waste police time or get attention. Even if he were the criminal, the statute of limitations had already passed, so he couldn't be persecuted for them anyway. You have to wonder though, why did he confess? So that is the case of the Blue Blanket butcher. I think I agree with the police theory that this person had a grudge against the family. After all, he had a goal to murder all the members, so it doesn't seem like the actions of someone without a grudge or some personal vendetta against the family. I can't see why he would think this way though. But of course we don't have all the facts. We know nothing about the family, we know nothing about Kaga or his business, so a lot of things are left unclear. In any case, this could be Japan's oldest unsolved true crime mystery, so I hope you found it interesting. Like most of my other videos, there are no English resources on this case, so it was very difficult for me to get reliable information. but I will work hard to translate what I can and bring you original content. While I cannot prevent bigger, more established YouTubers from taking my videos and making their own on the case, I would appreciate a shout out if you do. It's the least you can do after all, considering the amount of work I have to do as a Japanese speaker to translate this stuff. Anyway, thank you for watching my 7th YouTube video. If you liked it, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more. My next video is probably going to be something super different from usual, but I hope you look forward to it nonetheless. Until next time, goodbye.